Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Strategic Partnerships to Create Inclusive Career Pathways webinar. My name is Dina Klimkina from the Council of State Governments, and we're really excited to have you all here with us today. This webinar is presented in partnership with the Office of Disability Employment Policy, the Council of State Governments, Cornell University Institute on Employment and Disability, the LEAD Center, Social Policy Research Associates, the National Disability Institute, and the University of Massachusetts Medical School. As we get started, I'd like to draw your attention to a few housekeeping items. To follow along with captioning, open the captioning webpage in a new browser. You can click the link posted in the chat box, and the link is also displayed on the screen. You can adjust the background color, text, and font using the drop-down menus at the top of the browser. Make sure to click back to the webinar browser and position the window to sit directly above the captioning. If you have questions, submit them through the questions panel, and we'll save time at the end for Q&A. These slides are also available in an accessible PDF format. It is available in the handout section of the webinar window. Now let's get started. So to kick off our day today, we would like to welcome the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Office of Disability Employment Policy at the U.S. Department of Labor, Jennifer Sheehy. Prior to her current position, Jennifer spent 10 years at the U.S. Department of Education in a variety of incredibly impressive leadership roles. She came to the Department of Education from the Presidential Task Force on Employment of Adults with Disabilities, where she was a senior policy advisor and served a detail as Associate Director in the White House Domestic Policy Council. Before then, she was the Vice President of the National Organization on Disability and Director of its CEO Council. Welcome, Deputy Assistant Secretary Sheehy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Dina, and I'm super excited to be joining you all today. I want to thank all of the partners of both of our recently launched policy development centers who work together to put this webinar on for our customers of the workforce systems. And we are a government agency that has many customers, but the workforce system partners and all of the service providers and agencies that make our work centers our American Job Centers work well are so important to us and to employment for people with disabilities. So thank you for participating in this webinar today. If you don't know, ODEP is the only non-regulatory federal agency that develops policy strategies and works with government of all levels and the private sector and federal sector on employment success for people with disabilities. It's exciting to know that these two new policy development centers that were just launched will build on our previous work. And today you will hear about some of that work and the next steps for taking that to a goal that will help other people with disabilities find employment in the most streamlined, effective, and efficient way. But it has to work for you. And one of the reasons that we are always looking for input from you is because we only take on initiatives that our customers tell us are relevant. So I think it's important, if you like what you hear today, or if you have comments, questions, or ideas for us, please reach out and we will use that information to tailor our technical assistance and our policy research in order to meet your needs. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to one of our long-term friends and partners, Rebecca Salon. Rebecca?
Hi, thank you so much, Jennifer. This is Rebecca Salon with the LEAD Center. We wanted to tell you a little about the objectives for our session today. So today we're going to talk about the two ODEP-funded policy development centers that Jennifer referred to. One is the LEAD WIOA Policy Development Center, and the other is the Youth Policy Development Center. We're going to explore possibilities for strategic partnerships and systems coordination that can lead to improved employment and career outcomes for youth and adults with disabilities. And we're going to provide you with links to resources related to strategic partnerships, including an updated Guideposts for Success framework, an inclusive career pathways roadmap, and more. The LEAD Center's work focuses on promoting innovation in policy, employment, and economic advancement to support individual and systems level change for all people with disabilities. The LEAD Center provides policy research and recommendations, training and technical assistance, as well as demonstration projects designed to break down silos in existing systems, processes, and practices, and to foster a wider understanding, adoption, and integration of next generation employment practices in both the public and private sectors. So with funding from ODEP, the LEAD Center, which is also called the National Center on Leadership for the Employment and Economic Advancement of People with Disabilities, is continuing its work to promote equal opportunity within the broader workforce system for youth and adults with disabilities, to advance the development of inclusive career pathways using an interactive roadmap to inclusive career pathways on the LEAD Center website, which we'll show you, and support economic advancement and financial literacy for youth and adults with disabilities, and provide up-to-date data on the field, to the field on employment and related outcomes for people with disabilities.
The other program hosting this webinar is ODEP's Youth Policy Development Center. The center is a collaboration between ODEP, the Council of State Governments, Cornell University Institute on Employment and Disability, and the University of Massachusetts Medical School. The center works to improve employment outcomes for youth and young adults with disabilities by helping states build capacity in their youth service delivery and workforce systems. In that vein, we conduct research on new and existing innovative policy and practice approaches to improving transition and employment-related outcomes, develop strategic partnerships between national, state, and local workforce systems, and share best practices among key stakeholders. We also help states identify new opportunities to expand career pathways, work-based learning, strategic partnerships, systems coordination, and professional development for youth and young adults.
Hi, I'm Laura Aaron with Social Policy Research Associates and the LEAD Center. The LEAD and Youth Policy Development Centers partnered to bring you this webinar today as our missions overlap. We both work to help the field build better systems coordination by forging strategic partnerships that can lead to improved employment and career outcomes for youth and adults with disabilities. And what better way to focus on this goal than to discuss career pathways? Career pathways is a formalized system among key partners in education and workforce in partnership with employers. It maps a sequence of industry-recognized credentials that can be accumulated over time that move an individual along a career pathway or up a career ladder. This is an evidence-based strategy and is key to implementing WIOA, Perkins 5, and the Higher Education Act in a way that works for everyone, especially those with less formal education and or challenges to employment. This approach improves educational and skills attainment, increases employment outcomes with family-sustaining wages, and prepares people for in-demand careers. Career pathways usually begin in middle school as career exploration, although it can start earlier. Adult basic education and English as a second language also provide opportunities for career exploration and are best integrated within certificate or diploma programs and not as standalone programs. Post-secondary certificates should stack to enable advancement within a field. Key attributes of career pathways for career readiness and advancement include industry-aligned credentials, secondary and post-secondary credential attainment, multiple entry and exit points to employment and education, and accelerated path to achieving credentials. Let's look at a couple of examples. Here's a snapshot of what a nursing career pathway can look like. This is a pathway example from the nonprofit Cook Inlet Tribal Council. The first short-term credential is personal care assistant. After receiving this credential, a participant can become gainfully employed. If they choose to upgrade their skills, they can complete a certified nursing assistant certificate, which builds off the previous credential. The next stackable credential is licensed practical nurse, and after that, a registered nurse associate's degree. Completion of each step along the pathway will allow the student to seek gainful employment after each credential. So, how do you make these career pathways more inclusive?
We wanted to provide you with an example of a strategy that local areas can use to build a team of partners to develop inclusive career pathways. So the example we're giving is of an integrated resource team. Integrated resource teams are proven practices to provide an increased level of support to a job seeker with multiple challenges to employment. Integrated resource teams, or IRTs, were created to address the resource challenges often encountered in American job centers by increasing service collaboration and alignment of resources for these individuals. So an IRT is made up of representatives from various community organizations and partner agencies that meet specific employment needs for a job seeker. Just as each job seeker has a unique set of goals, each IRT is comprised of different service systems. A team may consist of members from a wide variety of community programs and service providers, and those might include the workforce development system, the people in an American Job Center, vocational rehabilitation, independent living centers, programs for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, programs for people who are blind, work incentive coordinators, supported employment service providers, reentry programs, veterans programs, people in a person support network. So it could be very specific to the person and their situation. Participating in an IRT has been identified as beneficial for the customer as it provides the opportunity to address multiple challenges to employment simultaneously and build a richly resourced plan that can lead to the attainment of living wage employment. For the participating system, an IRT offers the opportunity to jointly achieve more substantial employment outcomes for shared customers, with shared expertise and resources leading to outcomes that all systems can count, while reducing the amount of staff time needed to effectively implement service plans. So let's take a look at an example of how strategic partnerships help create inclusive career pathways for program participants and the systems that support them. This is an example of how an integrated resource team was able to leverage resources and funds to enable a job seeker to reach her career goals. Nancy is an SSDI beneficiary with a mental health diagnosis. She regulates her disability with medication and monthly counseling sessions through services from a community mental health provider agency. She was referred to the American Job Center's Disability Resource Coordinator by a behavioral health staff member for assistance in figuring out funding and advising them on her public benefits. Nancy had some work history in retail and customer service, but was looking to pursue a career in the healthcare field. Her long-term goal was to become an LPN. So the Disability Resource Coordinator coordinated an integrated resource team with the Behavioral Health Agency, a vocational rehabilitation counselor, the Community College Coordinator of Workforce Development, and Nancy. They created an individual employment plan to enroll her into the CNA program at the community college, for which there were classes held at the healthcare center. Once completed, Nancy would work for a year as a CNA and enroll in the licensed practical nurse program at a Career Pathways partner organization. The partners played the following roles in helping Nancy overcome her barriers. So the AJC assisted with training dollars, uniform vouchers, and benefits advisement. Vocational rehabilitation counselor assisted with case management and job readiness skills. The behavioral health program assisted with registering with the Career Center and completing the scholarship application. And the community college coordinator assisted with registering for classes and placement testing. Nancy was accepted into the CNA training class and completed the program with an 85 grade point average and perfect attendance. She did such a great job during her training that her nursing instructor referred her to the director of nursing for a possible job interview at the healthcare center where she started. And she was able to secure an interview and was offered a full-time job as a CNA at a more than living wage.
So career pathways can be built in many fields. And one of the keys to building career pathways for people with less formal education and our challenges to securing employment are short-term stackable credentials. The shorter-term credentials are still aligned with industry's needs, but they break down traditional associate's and bachelor's degrees into multiple certificates. So I just wanted to give you one more example of this kind of stackable credential piece. Here's an example from Central Oregon Community College in the health information technology field. 5 certificates stack, each offering college credit: medical insurance certificate, medical office specialist certificate, medical billing, medical coding, ultimately leading to registered health information technician. With the completion of these short-term credentials, new professional options can be unlocked. So career pathways systems comprise 6 key elements. They seek to build cross-agency partnerships with clarified roles, identify sector or industry and engage employers, design education and training programs, identify funding needs and sources, align policies and programs, and measure system change and performance. And as you know, today our focus is on that first element, building cross-agency and other strategic partnerships. So Rebecca has already mentioned many of the key partners that helped Nancy earn her certified nursing assistant and go on to get a licensed practical nurse degree. But when we look at these service providers a little more generally, we can see that we know the employer is really a key partner. We not only need to know what types of jobs are and will be available, we also need to better understand the specific technical skills they desire for their workforce. And of course, community colleges and adult basic education schools provide key career and technical education. Social service and community service providers provide wraparound services needed to help retain participants in education and employment. WIOA program partners provide key training and expertise, and of course, general workforce development entities, including your American Job Center, are key partners in developing these cross-agency partnerships for a career pathways system. Many partners can leverage their funding sources to build these career pathways systems. And we've mentioned so many programs, but you know, again, think about these are more like funding streams. So you have the WIOA funding streams through Title I, II, III, and IV programs within WIOA. So anything from your adult dislocated worker and youth programs. But think about Job Corps and Youth Build. There's the Indian and Native American program, Migrant and Seasonal Farm Worker program, grantees of the Adult Education and Family Leave Act. That includes school districts and community and technical colleges, often community-based organizations, and adult basic education, certainly Wagner-Pizer, vocational rehabilitation, TANF. So the list goes on and on. And so when you're thinking about building a career pathway or expanding a career pathway at your local level, you want to think about who can we bring to the table to build a career pathway that is truly inclusive.
We would like to discuss two additional yet critical partners that are seldom considered: policymakers and families. Policymakers are members of government organizations who are responsible for making new rules and laws, whether in the legislative or executive branch. Policymakers are critical stakeholders for several reasons. First, they have the ability to bring issues to the public forefront. For example, Representative Dan Miller of Pennsylvania supports his legislative efforts by hosting an annual free disability and mental health summit. A billboard for the event is located on the right side of the screen. Attended by hundreds of individuals, the event highlights critical issues facing individuals with disabilities, including career pathways. The event also bridges gaps between practitioners, legislators, and those who use services, allowing for all partners to interact with one another. The event on March 3rd hosted nearly 400 students and young adults with disabilities who were able to speak with their local legislators and express their goals and needs. These policymakers were then inspired to take action and change policy. Policymakers also have the ability to appropriate funding to career preparation programs, and they also have the ability and opportunity to mandate programming. For example, Pennsylvania House Bill 400 provides for the Work Experience for High School Students with Disabilities Act, which requires the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation to provide pre-employment transition services to students with disabilities and facilitates the process of job and career development between local education agencies and public and private employers. This ensures successful transition of high school students with disabilities into competitive integrated employment. The bill also authorizes for work-based learning experience. Other programs have provided for similar supports in the creation and development of new initiatives. Finally, policymakers also have the ability to ensure policies are inclusive of people with disabilities and developed with universal design principles. For example, California Assembly Bill 1684 requires that the California Department of Education develop and implement a statewide professional learning infrastructure to provide evidence-based support to educators in teaching, reading, and literacy across grades. The bill also provides for the support of tiered interventions, universal design for learning, and early intervention and inclusion for pupils with disabilities. As you can see, while policymakers are not traditionally included in agency partnerships, they are a vital stakeholder with the ability to make fundamental difference, whether through financial support or the development of new career pathways as mandated by law. Another critical stakeholder when developing career pathways, family members can play a key role to an individual's success in the workforce through their support, guidance, and advocacy. Family here is defined broadly as adults and children related biologically, emotionally, or legally, including single parents, blended families, unrelated individuals living cooperatively, and partnered couples who live with biological, adopted, or foster children. For youth, in particular, parents can play an important role in their career development. According to research commissioned by the U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy, students whose parents are involved in their career exploration and planning are more actively engaged in school, more open to change, and resilient when facing challenges. When working with families, policymakers and practitioners should embrace a multi-layered approach to service delivery that supports family members to set high expectations, to be involved in their child's education, to build strong advocacy skills, and to create a vision for a positive future for the child. Families who learn about and begin the career development process with their youth early will be better prepared to support them in choosing and building a bright future. For example, in the case of transition-age youth looking to engage in career pathway systems, families can work with the school and vocational rehabilitation agencies so that students are not only developing plans during school, but also receiving the supports they need at home. Parents can also make requests to IEP team leads that the vocational rehabilitation counselor takes part in the IEP meetings, or they can contact vocational rehabilitation services directly. Parents and individuals can work with VR agencies, community rehab providers, community employment programs, amongst other organizations to coordinate services. Parents can also lead in developing advocacy systems for their youth and teaching children to voice their needs to their legislators. There are also a number of great tools that can help ensure family engagement. For example, many states have developed guides for working with families and youth. So for example, Minnesota has developed a guide to preparing your child with a disability for life beyond high school. This resource was created to make transition planning easier for families and help them understand how to best work with other stakeholders to ensure their child's success.
So career pathways programs are available in every state and community and should work for everyone. However, to effectively serve people with disabilities, additional considerations and resources may need to be brought to bear. So the LEAD Center created the online tool that you see on your screen that contains the questions you can ask yourself in a number of different areas, actions you could take, and provides links to resources and examples of best practices to help systems leaders establish and support the development of inclusive career pathways. So if you go to the LEAD Center website, which is leadcenter.org, there's a link that says Road to Inclusive Career Pathways, and you'll be taken to this page, and you'll see that the destination to the far right is employment and economic self-sufficiency, which is the goal of all career pathways programs. And we clustered information in 5 general areas. One is capacity building, one is accessibility, partnerships, which is the focus of our webinar today, youth, and employer connections. So if you go to any of those destinations, those traffic circles on the roadmap, you'll again be able to see questions you could ask yourself or your team, actions you could take, and so on. So we wanted to give you an example of what you'll see. So if you click on partnerships and then look under cross-system activities from the drop-down menu, it gives you possible action steps that you can take. Things like learn about the diverse partners that convene regional work groups in your area. Find out what roles those people play on cross-partnership committees. Consider joining one of those groups or forming a work group of your own. Learn if and how AJCs proactively address the common myth that everyone's the funder of last resort, which seems to be a barrier to collaboration in many cases. And some additional activities are to research how AJCs practice active resource and funding coordination so that you know what the opportunities are. Learn about the key elements of integrated resource teams, which we discussed earlier, as a critical strategy for serving people with disabilities. Learn if the American Job Center leadership and partners support co-enrollment of individuals with multiple resource needs so that you could leverage from each other's systems, and conduct resource mapping in your state or local workforce region. And if you are on the site below, these activities will be listed opportunities for learning more about best practices of what different places in the country are doing and resources that support those best practices.
A great example of strategic partnerships is Kentucky's public sector apprenticeship program. In order to develop successful apprenticeships, numerous state agencies and employees had to work together. One example is that the Education and Workforce Cabinet coordinated with the Personnel Cabinet to develop the positions within the state system. Leaders across the state, from apprenticeship coordinators to local technical education teachers, advocated for numerous offices to participate. Officials from the Personnel, Labor, and Education and Workforce Cabinets led discussions with state and local government staff to make the case for apprenticeships in their offices. Over 4 apprenticeship programs with numerous apprentices have successfully launched to meet the unique needs of each entity. You can learn more about Kentucky's efforts in a report published by the Urban Institute at the link on the slide. Next, we're going to share some resources from the 2 centers.
Some additional resources that are available through links in the slide deck, and these also are in the Inclusive Career Pathways Roadmap, are resources about doing outreach and recruitment that is more effective in interacting and serving people with disabilities, partnerships to support education, training, and employment, legislation relevant to individuals with disabilities, so that you would be able to find information within the resources in those areas. There also are resources on guided group discovery and self-guided discovery. The LEAD Center developed these resources as part of its customized employment initiative, so that there are guided group discovery guides for general audiences, as well as ones that are specific to youth and to veterans. There are self-guided discovery toolkits and manuals that people would be able to access. So you have links to those there that are downloadable. There's an Inclusive Career Pathways desktop guide that provides information and resources to support inclusive programs and services. And it kind of includes some of our favorite resources, the ones that we think are very useful for people to use. And there are links to the Career Pathways Toolkit, which is on Workforce GPS, an enhanced guide and workbook for systems development that provides wonderful guidance and resources for how systems can better collaborate. And also on Workforce GPS, in their disability and employment section on the disability employment landing page, there are links to information and resources to assist with the understanding and implementation of integrated resource teams, involving strategies for coordinating services and leveraging funding in order to meet the needs of an individual job seeker with a disability. So we provide you here with a link directly to more information on integrated resource teams, but there's rich resources in the disability and employment space on Workforce GPS that we encourage you to check out.
The Youth Policy Development Center is in the process of developing new resources expanding from the Guideposts for Success. The Guideposts for Success was created by the National Collaborative on Workforce Development Youth to target 3 groups. It targeted youth and families, state-level policymakers, and administrators and local policymakers, with a focus on 5 key areas. Those areas included school preparation, career preparation, connecting activities, youth development and leadership, and family involvement. So the Youth Policy Development Center's expanded resources will include several new tools. One is the Roadmap for Youth and Families, Setting the Benchmark. Another is a short brief for legislators and policymakers that will highlight the key elements and youth transitions policy, as well as an expanded version for legislators and policymakers highlighting key elements to consider while providing a more in-depth look into each guidepost. And then finally, there will be the framework for the future for provider organizations and local level systems to provide a consistent structure to design and implement youth-serving programs. Finally, I wanted to share information on how to connect with the centers. So you can find all of that information on this slide. We would love to speak with you and address any needs or concerns. But beyond that, I want to hand it off to Chris Button and Kirk Liu from ODEP to close us out, and then we'll be taking some questions.
Thank you so much, Dina, and thank you to everyone who has been a speaker today from our 2 centers, our 2 partners, and thank you to everyone who has been on the webinar listening in to hear what these 2 great groups of professionals and leaders are doing as they partner with ODEP through their centers to really try to open up the world of employment, of integrated employment for youth and adults with disabilities. I'm actually more energized than ever to be working on these areas. I know that for the WIOA Policy Development Center that Lead Center is implementing with SPR and NDI, and also with the Youth Policy Development Center and their partners, that the work scopes are rich and deep, and that we will be updating all of our partners across the country through a range of different ways, including webinars and including various resources and materials that will be being developed and released as the research is implemented and pilots are implemented and analyzed, and we identify information that will be of use to those of you across the country in whatever role you have, as you also try to assist in expanding employment for youth and adults with disabilities. So thank you very much to everyone. Kirk, I'm going to throw it over to you for just a minute to say a few words.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for those words. And as you guys can see, how important it is to ODEP that we think about young people in general, young people with disabilities in a comprehensive and holistic manner. And we expect that within ODEP, within our partners throughout our federal agencies. Nothing that we have done has been done in a vacuum. So we understand that if we're going to think about the successful transition of young people, we need to think about how they're transitioning into these adult systems. So it's so important for us to work collaboratively, not only with our partners, but with our colleagues within ODEP. So this presents an incredible opportunity for us to think about young people and how we can improve their employment outcomes just by thinking comprehensively and holistically about some of the ways that we transition them into adult systems. So we're excited. We thank you for participating in this webinar. We thank our partners and we look forward for the next couple of years of implementing both of these centers and helping the systems grow and improve the employment outcomes for young people and adults with disabilities. So thank you, everyone.
We would love to take your questions now. So please just type them into the questions box. And you don't have to say a particular panelist, but one of the panelists will answer your questions. So we'll be able to see your chat questions as you chat them in. I think we had one question come in. Let me see here.
Yeah, there's one question about, can you provide additional resources for resource mapping? If we could go back to the Connect with Us slide, perhaps we can, you can shoot one of us an email as well, and we can give you additional resources. But there are resources on resource mapping on the Lead Center website. If you click on the link to Road to Inclusive Career Pathways.
Great. Thank you so much for that question from the field. If anyone has any other particular questions about career pathways, specifically even strategic partnerships, we would love to hear them.
I think that we do not have any more questions. However, if anybody can think of any more questions, our contact information is available. And we will also, like Sydney said, provide additional information and resources with our email. We'll provide a cleaned up audio file following this webinar to you all, as well as any updates that we may have. We're really, really grateful you all were able to join us, and we're really excited to connect with you all moving forward on behalf of both centers. Thanks for signing up, and you all have a great afternoon.